All right, welcome back here. Breaking news as we are following the aftermath. It hasn't been too terribly long since that quake hit really the eastern seaboard of the United States, 5.9 in magnitude. People feeling it all the way up and down, north and south. Take a look at this. I have a couple of images. We're just now getting into CNN. This first image, this is from Northern Illinois University, and you can see the crazy activity here on this graphic. That is when the earthquake hit. Keep in mind the epicenter, Mineral, Virginia. It's about 80 miles away from Washington, D.C. You can see the precise moment this recorded that quake hitting. Another image I have for you, you know, we've been covering the story out of Manhattan. And watch this video. This is the district attorney of Manhattan. This is Cyrus Vance, and he's supposed to be giving this news conference essentially on the fate of former IMF chief Dominic Strauss-Kahn. He had been facing some charges related to an alleged sexual assault. And so here they are, members of the press. They're in this room.
Good afternoon, everybody.
He says hello. Let's listen.
Take a limited number of questions. Standard has protected. Okay. So no, I'm okay. I've been through earthquakes in Seattle. All.
So, as you see, members of the press, other people in there, getting up out of their seats, getting out of there. I feel like I heard someone, maybe that was Mr. Vance, saying, it's okay, I've been in Seattle, I've been through earthquakes before. Maybe some of those people have not. Needless to say, the cameras captured that precise moment when the quake hit in Manhattan. Final image, before I get to my guest here, final image, we have this chandelier, I believe it is. Here we go. Shaking quite a bit here. This is from an iReporter. This is New York State, and you and I are seeing this for the first time together. So just a little bit of shaking, Glenn Ricks. Bringing you in from Georgia Tech, nearby here, professor of civil and environmental engineering and an earthquake engineer. Welcome to CNN.
Thank you. I'm pleased to be here.
So, what do we make of this? A 5.9 magnitude earthquake. I was listening to the U.S. Geological Survey just a moment ago saying it's been years since we've seen something like this.
It's true. Earthquakes are much more common in the western United States, particularly in California, and in the view of many people, that's the only place where earthquakes do occur in the United States. But in fact, there are earthquakes in the eastern United States as well, but they're just much less frequent, and they can be quite powerful, but typically they're not. And so 5.9 is pretty big for the eastern United States.
So explain this to me, because the moment it happened, you know, we're all on Twitter, and I was getting tweets all the way, even from Georgia, South Carolina, North Carolina, Washington, D.C., all the way up from Manhattan to, you know, Martha's Vineyard, Ohio, West Virginia. People all over felt this thing. Why is that? Is it because it's one single plate?
It is, yeah.
Okay.
And the Earth's crust west of the Rockies is different than the Earth's crust east of the Rockies. And so earthquakes in the eastern United States propagate over a much larger distance and can be felt over a much larger area than the same size earthquake would be in the western United States. So it's not unusual that we're feeling this earthquake over such a large part of the eastern United States.
Also curious, the aftershocks. You know, I just talked to someone in Washington, D.C. No, they didn't feel them. You talked to someone, as I did, in Louisa County, where this epicenter was. They said, you know, gosh, she's felt 5. How does that happen?
Well, earthquakes are an almost inevitable part of any larger earthquake, just because it takes a while for the Earth's crust to sort of come back into an equilibrium after an earthquake. The aftershocks, though, are typically smaller than the earthquake. So this earthquake, in the big scheme of things, a 5.9, was not that large, and so the aftershocks, rather, will be even smaller and maybe below the threshold where people, you know, at a far distance can feel them. So
are they over?
No, they'll continue for many hours, days, and possibly even weeks.
Really?
Yeah. But again, they'll be much smaller, and people may not even feel them.
So what do you tell people who perhaps are still bracing in maybe, I don't know, Louisa County, Virginia, and the area, you know, fearful of maybe some of these aftershocks? What advice do you give people in the case of an earthquake? Because we don't know how this goes out on it.
Right, exactly. No. No, you know, the best thing is to just make sure that, like, bookcases and other loose objects are secured. You know, that's probably the biggest threat, is that bookcases falling over and things like that. That's probably the best advice I would give someone, is just, you know, make sure that nothing in your home can fall on you.
Okay. Glenn Ricks from Georgia Tech, thank you very, very much.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Quickly here, let me just remind you one other piece of this story as we've been following, and I talked to the head of Dominion Power that runs this North Anna power plant. They are now on their backup generators. There are 4 of them. They power hundreds of thousands of homes in and around the Virginia area. He told me power is fine for those folks, but obviously the big concern is keeping those spent fuel rods cool. This is classified, according to this power company, as an unusual event, but it's the lowest of their 4 emergency categories. We are going to follow this one. We are also following what's happening in Libya. If you've been watching CNN, which I'm sure you have through the day,